Welcome to the LEP Collaborative Podcast, the show where licensed educational psychologists, school psychs, and educational professionals come together to share stories, swap strategies, and sprinkle a little fun into our professional journeys. I'm your host, Bethany Zoller, and in every episode, we'll dive into candid conversations, expert insights, and maybe a few surprises. Let's connect, learn, and grow collaboratively. All right. Well, welcome to the LEP Collaborative Podcast. I'm Bethany Zoller, and today I am with, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Golareh Ghazian.
All right. Well, thank you for being here, Golareh. You have been an LEP for a couple of years, but you have about 10 years of experience in educational psychology. And now you are like fine-tuning your desire to help out and educate people on pathological or PDA. We're going to talk about all the names of it today. And you work across the whole age range. We've got all the way from K-12 to adults and vocational, with vocational needs. You offer full and targeted assessments for ADHD, autism. You do some school contracts, educational and vocational counseling, parent consultations for IEP support. And you also provide PDA training and consultation for schools, clinicians, and families. So we are going to dig into what PDA really is, as it's often misunderstood and kind of still new to us on this side of the pond. And so we'll talk about that a little bit, but just thank you for being here today.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to
So
speak.
I like to just start off with just some simple, like silly, get to know you questions. So do you have a favorite assessment? Like your go-to? What's your, like, if you're picking something up, this is your favorite?
You know, I don't know if it's popular or not, but I really like the cognitive assessment, the CAS-2.
Okay. You know what?
So
As a gal with ADHD, that is one of the hardest ones for me to administer because it is so executive functioning heavy.
really, I do enjoy it. I feel like it covers a big age group and it has different sections. The kids don't get bored.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just, I feel like I'm used to it. Maybe
All
that's what
right.
it is.
Do you have a least favorite? That
Yes,
you-
anything that's I have a big least favorite. It's a whole area. I don't like academic testing.
Yes. You know
I
what?
hate
I
it.
I find it so tedious.
Yes.
And it's very difficult to keep engagement and energy and all of those things. I do feel like when I see the kid do the things, it does make more sense to me, right? Whereas as a school psych, I'd get the academics and I'd be like, oh, I got these scores. So I get so much more information out of it. But yes,
Yeah.
I totally agree with you. It's long,
And tedious. Yes. But it
tedious.
is definitely it's a big piece of the puzzle.
For
And it's
sure. For
necessary.
sure. I think that's probably why I love autism and ADHD assessments though, and I do targeted ones because I don't necessarily have to do academics.
Yes, and that was the thing when I practiced as or I was as a school psychologist. A lot of times, some of the districts would not require it. I would always ask, "Is that required for the psych to do the assessment academic, or is this a
Hmm.
special ed?" And that was always like a big thing because it's also very time consuming,
Oh
you know.
yeah. Yeah,
So
I would say like all of mine that are the traditional school psych tools, like it would be about the same. I mean, it's like almost doubling your time to do that full academic battery.
absolutely.
So no, I totally understand that. Okay, so you work the whole age range, you've done the whole gamut. Is there a group that you love the most that you're like, I would love to spend all my time with this group?
You know, I feel like I did work for a brief time with a continuation transition program, and that
Mhm.
was that age group or that population. It was the moderate severe
Okay.
population. They have a special place in my heart. I really, it was a short period I worked there, but I made such a bond with the students. And I would say that was something I'll always remember, and the support you would give them, they would remember. And they're
Yeah,
very honest and selective with who
sure.
they work with. So it was definitely special. But I
Yeah.
love working with all ages. I do enjoy high school. I think elementary, again, is a little bit more challenging, but I still welcome that because I love
Hmm.
the little kiddos. So I
Hmm.
don't really have a favorite. They each have their pros and cons.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, cool. All right. Um, Okay, if you had, I don't know if you use this expression when you were a school psych, but we would have, assessment plans come through and then they would warn me that like there was a red flag parent or something like that, right? So there was like a cautionary label. If I got your file on my desk, what would be the cautionary label for you?
As a school psychologist or
Just
as
as
a
a
parent? Because
person,
I'm also a parent.
as a parent.
Definitely, I would say I'm a big time student advocate.
Okay.
When it comes to assessing students, I don't care who you are, if you're a
Mhm.
top admin, your speech therapist, whoever, provider, parent, at the end of the day, my ultimate zone in, ultimate goal to service is the student. That's my
Yeah,
passion.
I love that. I love that. That's a great warning to have. Watch out, world. Okay, so how long have you been in LEP?
It's going to be 2 years in March, but as a school psych, I have, I think about 13 years of experience with that.
Okay, cool, cool. So 2 years as an LEP, and
Mhm.
then are you still working in the schools at all, like as a school psych, or are you
I
all the way
do.
over? Okay, tell me about
Yeah, I've been, transitioning slowly into private practice. I do work part-time with a third-party contractor, so I work with different schools and different cases.
okay. So
So,
you're kind of doing this slow. I
yeah.
honestly think that's the smartest move. I've seen people be very successful and just jumping the ship and just going full out, but I think if you have a family and you have bills,
Yes, I think it's
this is the way
important
to
to
go.
figure out where you want to stretch your time because within
Mhm.
our field as LEPs, we can invest our time in so many different areas, doing contracts with schools, doing workshops, working with parents with private IEs. So just kind of balancing out and kind of tipping my toe and figuring out where do I want to spend most of my time and energy.
Yeah.
And I think that's important to do that gradually.
I agree. I agree. And so you have fallen in love with PDA.
Yes, I kind of feel like I stumbled upon that path. Um, I have a great colleague, I would say, everyone in the mental health provider scene.
Mhm.
I feel like if you're a social worker, speech therapist, whatever type of provider you are, we are all a team.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to collaborate. I started kind of getting to know Christine McKennis.
Uh-huh.
She's a MFT in the South Bay area. And we were in contact for a while before I did get my license. So as soon as I did, we started chatting, meeting, working together. I started running some of the parent workshops for PDA. Um, and she introduced me to North America PDA group, and
Hmm.
they have meetings. I took some courses, PDA 101, just to kind of get introduced to what PDA is.
Hmm.
And I would say I'm still learning, but it's definitely a huge passion of mine. And I feel like whatever I'm learning, I like to pass it on, kind of bring light to this area when it
Yeah.
comes to what we do as practitioners and even school psychologists and other providers like one-on-ones, special ed teachers. It's definitely an area that needs to be better understood.
Yeah. So explain to me what PDA is like I'm a 5-year-old.
So, when someone asks me, they're like, "What's PDA?" I kind of explain the idea of ODD. We
Hmm.
do the diagnosis of ODD is kind of the opposite of PDA. It's almost like PDA is being misunderstood a
Mm.
lot of times. I mean, I'm not saying there's no such a thing as ODD, but a lot of times it does get
The
misdiagnosed.
problem I think with ODD is that it doesn't explain. It's like, yeah, this kid's got
Define.
oppositional and defiant. It's
Yeah.
just a pattern of the behavior, but it's not actually helping us move
It,
forward.
it's
So,
not, it's not, it's not proactive, it's not viewing it in a positive lens of, seeing the child as not a problematic individual, more
yeah.
like what's happening to this child. So it's basically a pathological demand avoidance. It's more geared towards the nervous system. So
Hmm.
basically, kiddos that have autism, there's more studies done with the correlation of autism and PDA, but there's also some studies suggesting that there's a correlation with ADHD, which is a little even more niche area
Yeah.
that I'm interested in because I feel like there's also a lot of manifestation of PDA when it comes to kids with ADHD. So basically, it could be the smallest demand, um, or just, parents will say, I can't get my kid to do anything. Or even in our case, when we're doing an assessment, we have those kiddos that we want to provide services to or provide an assessment, they don't want to come. So just kind of understanding that the kid is not trying to be difficult. There's so much going on. There's so much nervous system dysregularity going on that even the smallest request becomes a huge demand and trigger. And understanding what that looks like and what that feels like for a child who's experiencing PDA. That's the important part. I think it's not like when I did the parent workshop, a lot of parents are like, okay, so how can we get our kid to listen? And
Hmm.
that's not the approach we want to take. And same thing with us as LEPs or anyone in the field of special education. It's not about getting the kid to do things. It's about collaboration,
Hmm.
understanding, understanding that this child is not feeling safe. They're requiring autonomy. They're desperately wanting autonomy. And all their behavior is just the expression of that.
Yeah.
So the main part of PDA is understanding it. And with that, I've done a lot of research. I'm continuing with that. And I do want to provide a workshop for LEPs and yeah, and
Great.
everyone in the field. So at least we have a better understanding. I feel that the parent workshops are also very helpful because parents can kind of share their experiences because it's
Hmm.
a very isolating place to be for most parents. Now, working with Christine McKenna, she does more of the MFT and the family coaching. I would say I learned from my experience that, I did run those workshops, but for me, I'd like to be the bridge to kind of help educators understand PDA rather than working with the parents.
Sure.
So it's definitely something that needs to have more
Hmm. Yeah.
spot on. Yeah,
So right
spotlight.
now you're doing trainings. Have you had many kids or whatever age range of individuals come in that you've had to do the assessment to determine
At
autism
school
and if there's
setting, I would say at school
okay,
settings I have. Private assessments, not so far. But then again, I haven't had so many. I just, kind of started my
getting working on
practice.
that. Okay.
Yeah, but looking back, dealing with kiddos that we had a lot of kids with behaviors. The child would be in the principal's office and let's go ahead and diagnose this kid with ED or ODD, and just understanding that this child's background, what do they have? ADHD, autism, trauma.
Hmm.
Some of those bring upon those manifestations of PDA.
Absolutely.
That desperate need for autonomy and safety. So these kids really don't feel safe, and our job is to kind of create that rapport
Hmm.
and that feeling of safety. So if that might mean we need to spend more time with that client or that child when it comes to assessing, and that's important when we're planning our assessments, whether it's at private setting or school setting.
Yeah. So I have very minimal experience myself. I've had maybe two. And one of them, the child, she was about 8. And she needed to have her mom in the room. So I broke, like, I had to explain standard. I was like, well, this is what we need to do to be able to feel safe in this environment. That's totally fine. And I remember we ended up, I think, testing on the floor. And I kind of just like had to, and I didn't know what I was getting myself. I just met this kid. I mean, they just called for an assessment, and I was like, okay, let's do it. But the mom was really shocked because she was so compliant. And I remember looking at her and I was like, that's because I'm not putting any demands on her at all. And she was just like, what? And I'm like, well, I'm like, she's doing stuff as long as it's interesting. And then I'm kind of giving her other options. But it was so funny because the mom just looked at me and she was like, well, why is she? And I'm like, it's because I'm not forcing, we're not sitting at a table. We're because she didn't feel comfortable there. So I'm like, all right, I can test on the floor. I'm old. You're gonna have to help me get up, but it's
Yeah.
fine. So, I mean, is that similar in your experiences that you kind
It
of
it
have
really is, and it's interesting. It's like everything you think of structure,
to,
and
hmm
we've always learned that kids need structure and that gives them safety. But in this case, it's kind of hard to have that structure.
it's like
It
they're
will
leading the
change.
structure. It's not,
Exactly.
it can't be mine.
Exactly. And
Yeah,
it could be collaborative. So it's
right.
really understanding the feeling behind their reaction.
hmm
Um, you know, being able to kind of meet them at the table. It's not like, okay, I'm your parent, you do what I tell you, or I'm the practitioner, we're going to do this assessment. They have to be on board. They're collaboratively making a decision to do anything.
hmm
So understanding that and kind of reading the cues of where they are emotionally, are they feeling safe?
hmm
Are they feeling like they can have autonomy at this moment? If the answer is no to those, there's no way you can do anything. So you can just kind of, you have to think outside the box. Like you said, you were laying on the ground, and that's exactly what you do. For me, I've had experience with PDA kids where, um, you just kind of talk about, like, what are you feeling today? And just kind of start from scratch and have them kind of feel safe enough to open up and to connect. And then once you do that, short periods of time, because they do feel overwhelmed. You can't expect them to sit down and be assessed for hours on end. That's a
Yeah.
trigger. So those are some of the things, there's not like a list of answers. It's
Well,
more,
yeah. Each
you
kid's going to
know,
be completely unique.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
exciting.
Yeah. I just thought of a question and it just like disappeared from my brain. But so you're offering a lot more opportunity for autonomy. And
Yes.
that's the other name I've heard it called. So pathological demand avoidance is kind of the go-to descriptor, but I've also heard it persistent desire for autonomy. Is that
Yes, there's so many different, I'm still seeing all
learning them
these
all?
new.
Yeah. I heard one and I was like, oh, that sounds much better. Whenever there's the word pathological in something,
I
it
know.
doesn't sound positive,
That's true.
right?
That's true.
But we,
Persistent sounds good. Persistent demand for autonomy. I like that
yeah,
one too.
yeah.
Yeah.
Demand for, I think that's what or desire, maybe persistent desire for, I don't know. But there's a lot of them out there, but they're
Yeah.
all more positive than the
See, that even
traditional
tells
way.
you what a creative area it is. And there's so
Sure.
much we're still all learning.
Now, you said something at the very beginning that I love, and that is that PDA is not only associated with autism. And I feel like that is a very misunderstood statement. Because a lot of people are like, oh, if it's PDA, it's autism. And I'm like, no,
Yeah.
could be anything, truly,
Yeah.
because it comes from that root for needing to have that autonomy, that need for control over my environment because I feel unsafe. Or, I always try to explain it to my families that I'm like, okay, even if it's not as like we don't see it as a safety thing, right? I tried to explain. I was like, yeah, we can have, especially for my ADHD families. I'm
Yes.
like, we can want spontaneity because of
Yes.
the ADHD side of the brain, right? It's like, let's do this fun thing, let's go be creative, let's go whatever. I said, but for the autism side to come along, we need to have parameters in place, right? So we can be spontaneous, but it needs to be our idea.
Exactly. We have to be part of the plan for
Right.
sure.
Yes. We can't just like expect us to roll with it because there's still that need, that kind of cognitive rigidity that is pretty traditionally associated with, with autism or ADHD can be in there as well. But yeah, when I first learned about PDA, I actually learned it from the lens that it can fall under any mental
Yeah.
health condition. And then
Yeah.
it kind of gets associated with autism because that's probably the characteristic that we see it with the most frequently. But I have definitely met ADHD kids that had severe demand avoidance, you know?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And even trauma, I feel like,
Mhm.
if you think about
I
it
mean, that makes the
logically,
most logical sense to
that's
me.
exactly.
Yeah. It's like I have been unsafe. I
Yeah.
have not had people follow through. I have, we've got attachment issues. We've got our basic needs weren't met in some way.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm going to need control over every environment. And screw
Exactly.
you if you're not going to do it the way I want you to do it, like the way I need it done. So, I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, no, it's fascinating. So, You learned about this initially from your MFT friend, sounds
Yes.
like, and then
Christine, yes.
Christine, and then it's just kind of grown from there. Um, and and so you're doing trainings for adults. Are you working on a training for LEPs?
I am. I
How
am. I'm
exciting.
anticipating I have to figure out the CU credits because
Hmm.
we all need that. But I am working on that and I'm thinking probably sometime in October
How exciting.
um, would be a date.
Yeah.
And I'd like to kind of also reach out to some of the local SELPAs to offer that. But for the LEP community, I want to get that going as
Yeah,
soon as
no, that's
possible.
it's definitely a huge topic of interest at the moment. Um, just because we're so behind in the times, because it's been around for a while and we just barely started acknowledging it here. So,
Yes.
let's see. So if you were working with a school team and you were providing guidance on PDA, like what are some of the tips and tricks that you would be sharing with educators to kind of help open their minds up to this new profile?
Again, number one, it would be just understanding what PDA is
Hmm.
and kind of being able to screen for it. Um, and to know the root feelings and what a student with PDA requires to
Hmm.
be able to collaborate, to do their work, to come to school. You know, we have a lot of PDA kiddos that have issues with attendance. So again, that's a big conversation. That's something to look at when we're looking at students with chronic attendance issues. So that would be an area I would talk to school staff about. Um, Kind of figuring out what are some of the ways we can support the child to feel safe at
Hmm.
school and what that looks like. And it's a lot more, it's more difficult in, I would say, in public school setting to provide
Hmm.
what are the alternate settings that the students can go, maybe a different type of school, maybe a hybrid format. So just kind of being open to different settings and different accommodations because every student with PDA has their unique needs to feel
Hmm.
safe
Hmm.
and that autonomy. Because again, it's the nervous system. There's so many triggers at a huge school setting. Um, I've just kind of had that experience that becomes a big challenge for some of these kiddos.
Do you ever see that all or nothing thinking kind of taking over too? So it's like, um, for example, I have a client that I see for counseling, and he has ADHD. Eighth grader missed 53 days of school this
Yes.
last year, wasn't able to be eligible for graduation. He has an IEP, he's in specialized classes, all of those things. But there is one teacher that he had a negative interaction with. And I don't even think, I want to say this all happened before I met him. I kind of got him as like everything was on fire at the
Yeah.
end of the school year. But I think that teacher's not even like part of his day. But the fact that that teacher is on campus and there is a minute possibility that he could see this
Yeah.
teacher who was rude to him one time, it's like that all or nothing thinking has just encompassed it all, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like he gets on that thing and then there is no way that they are getting him to go to school.
Yes.
So like I honestly don't know what to suggest. Um, so if you
Well,
had these parents or kid
yes.
as a counselor, like what would be questions that you would be asking to learn more? Like teach me the ways. What would I which
Well, I would say, that's very common what you just mentioned. It doesn't take much. It could take
Mhm.
something that might seem very minute to us to be that trigger to kind of sets the fire. Uh, in this case, the dysregulation is already there, the
Mhm.
feeling of not being safe, and then the manifestation is that teacher being rude. And that just blows up in their whole existence as, a red flag, a
Mhm.
constant red flag they can't just push aside. In this case, I would say recommending replacement, like a safety. Maybe there is a teacher, maybe there is a person that they feel safe with. Um, that would be a recommendation. Doesn't mean it's going to always work. It depends on the
Sure.
severity of their feeling. So
Right.
just kind of working on that feeling and trying to replace it with more positive and safe
Yeah.
feeling in some ways. And again, that is a little bit of a little bit of a struggle because, even if I had one kiddo who had a group of friends in
Mhm.
that school, they changed the classrooms, they didn't have any more class together, but still the child did not, they had to do a different placement.
Yeah.
So I think for providers, parents, it's important to understand that we kind of have to adjust to their needs.
Hmm. Yeah, for this
To,
kid, because it was, I want to say I met him like 3 weeks before school was out, and we'd already missed 50 days of school. And so I said, is there a reason why we haven't just switched to like independent study so that we're still getting some level of education? And it was interesting
yeah,
because the kid would then say, well, I want to go to school to see my friends. And so I don't want this other alternative placement because I want to be able to see my friends. And then I'd look at him and I'd go, okay, that's a wonderful idea. So how do we make it so that you go to school to see your friends? And he honestly, like, it was so inflexible. And probably because I was meeting him when everything is at a 10, you know?
yeah, yeah.
So it's harder to have that flexibility, but it was very difficult. And so now we're going in, he just graduated. He finished 8th grade and he'll be going and starting high school. And so I've been trying to like prep him that, yeah, this person that was negative wasn't there, but we're still going to be around people. And sometimes people aren't kind. And so, what are we going to do in these situations? And he's just like, I just, the rigidity is amazing to me. And I'm trying, but I'm like, I honestly don't know how effective I am being with this kid. But
I think prepping is a big part of it.
mhm.
We call it storytelling or setting the scene. Um, that's really important to kind of make them feel safe, and it's an environment they're going to that's a little bit more predictable. But if you really think about it, school is not predictable. Even if your schedule is set, there's nothing predictable about a school setting.
Yeah.
So sometimes I suggest, keeping that social network because you don't want to isolate these kids either. It's not a good place to be for the parents or for the kiddos. They want to be part of the social circle, but without all the negativity or things that trigger their PDA. I would recommend hybrid format
Mm,
or just involving the child. What, like you said, asking him, what does that look like to you? What would an ideal situation look like to you?
yeah.
And kind of involving them in that process because they're really highly in tuned kids.
Hmm.
And kind of, if they ever feel like someone's kind of planning everything for them, they're not going to be participating at
Yeah.
all. So they have to be equal partner when it comes to making decisions into their academic or even social. So it's
Mhm.
a big thing to remember always.
And that's so hard because so
Yes.
many things, in life don't lend to that, especially as a child. Like there are times that it's like, yeah, I know that you don't want to go get a shot or go take your medicine because you're very ill.
Yeah.
But some of those times there's has to be some give and take, and so it's hard to navigate that. I know the same kid, like the medicine thing is what popped into my head is like the mom has told me, she's like, yeah, I can't, like if he's sick, we're gonna have to go get like an injection because I cannot get him to take anything that he doesn't want to take. And I'm like, wow. I mean,
Yeah.
just and I mean, I'm pro like pick your battles, but everything is a
Everything
battle.
becomes kind of a battle.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And they go through different phases, just kind of like autism, when you have the regression. Same thing, it's similar with PDA. They do have some regression at times when they're not feeling safe. So, for example, I had this parent whose child would not go to the bathroom, and then they would end up soiling themselves, and they were potty trained, but
Mhm.
it became the feeling of uh, that fear and not safety became so excessive that it affected them in that way. So we just always have to go back to that feeling and being able to kind of connect with the child and meet them where they are emotionally. And then
Mhm.
as soon as they start feeling safe, then the autonomy kind of comes, kind of follows with
Mhm.
that.
Mhm.
So.
It's good stuff. Um, I feel like you kind of already answered this one. I had a question that was, what's the biggest misstep that you see school teams make with PDA kids, even when they mean well? So what do you think?
I think it's just that structure. We are so used to as educators or they have a certain time limit. They have other students they're dealing with. It's kind of a challenge to meet these students' individual needs. And that's kind of a little bit the reason why we see so much of a issue with their attendance, with behaviors, because it just takes a lot more support.
Hmm.
And that's something that I feel like a lot of teachers mean well, but they have other students they're dealing with, and just understanding that, hey, if this kid needs to have a space like a quiet space in the corner of the classroom on the beanbag, or if
Yeah.
whatever makes them feel safe, even if it's not within that time that you want them to, you can't have that structure all the time. You have to understand, you have to think outside the box. That would be my message to educators. Think outside the box when it comes to PDA kiddos.
I know that you're going to do a training. In the meantime, is there anywhere that you would point people in the direction if they wanted to learn more about PDA?
Absolutely. I reached out to PDA North America. They have PDA 101. You can take that course online. There's also groups that I do go to their meetings every so often. They have meetings with all different types of practitioners. I haven't really seen any LEPs in that group, so I definitely
Ah,
welcome that, encourage that. And also, I did take a course that was offered, I think it was in April, and it was done by, I don't remember her name right now. It's kind of uh, going above my head, but she had a wonderful course, and she's based in UK because this is an area that's highly researched and studied, and everyone knows about it. It's UK and Canada.
mm-hmm.
They're really in touch with PDA. Um, Forgive me, I can't remember her name right now, but I did get my certificate through her. And I know Diane Gold is the North America PDA. Um, she's the founder of North America PDA, and she's a wealth of knowledge. And I would recommend following that. Yeah.
Awesome.
She's on LinkedIn, Facebook. So there's a lot of material that we can provide to families and also schools.
Awesome. Okay. I did one by Dr. Donna Henderson. Um, and she's an autism specialist lady. So hers was definitely from the
Oh,
autism lens.
okay.
But I think she's the only training I've been to, but it was very interesting. It was just learning about how brains are cool.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. And the training I did take, again, it was a lady, she is a LEP
Hmm.
in UK. So it was
Oh.
more like how do we it was more geared towards LEPs and how do we look at PDA when we're providing assessments. So it was
Mhm.
very helpful. I learned a lot of information there, and I kind of want to do my take on it within my training.
Absolutely. It's a great thing. The other thing that I had to figure out, because I've done, like I said, I think I've only done it 2 or 3 times that I've actually done the diagnosis, is is actually like documenting it in my report because it's not part of
Yeah.
autism, right? And so it's like I would have to do the code, the ICD-10 code, and then the autism whatever level, and then lately I've been just doing like a bullet point that kind of
Yeah.
explains
Yeah,
PDA and how it, and I think I call it with a distinct PDA profile or something like that. I think is how I.
exactly. And I think it really comes in when we're dealing with accommodations.
Hmm.
That's something to keep in mind when we're providing the accommodation section in our reports. That would be helpful
Yeah,
for educators and parents.
it's all going to be about increasing choice and flexibility and.
Flexibility,
Mhm.
absolutely.
Yeah. To
Yes.
an extent. I think that's the hardest part is because like I told that mom when she was like, "Oh, she's being so compliant." I wasn't putting any demands on her. I mean,
Yeah.
sort of, I guess. She was still doing tasks for me, but it was not like I need you to do this. But that isn't always possible in the school setting. I mean, like think of like a fire drill or whatever, or where we have there's no sitting down and talking about how this is making us feel unsafe. We just have to act. And so it's such a hard balancing act. I feel for our, first responder educators that are in that doing it all day long. I think that's another big role that a school psychologist and educational psychologist can be, is just an encourager and somebody who's walking alongside and
Absolutely.
validating these parents and these teachers' experiences, because this is, and the kids' experience, but they need a lot of encouragement because we're having to differentiate a lot. Um,
Yeah, I mean, even, for the parent workshop, a lot of the parents are like, well, as parents, we're supposed to tell them to do this and make sure this, and all that goes kind of out the door. It's
mhm,
completely a different ball game,
mhm.
and it is difficult in a school setting because you're on a schedule, so there's that time demand. That's a
Yeah.
demand. There's everything about school is demanding, so it's definitely a challenge.
I had a speech pathologist tell me a technique, and I want to say it was just like questioning what was happening. It was just like, instead of, hey, we need to do this, it was just like, well, tell me about like how you think this should work, or all of these things. And I was like, oh man, it has come in handy so many times as just being kind of the dumb person in the room, like, hey, explain this to me. And then and then they have
Yeah.
that feeling of control and autonomy. Oh, well, this lady doesn't know anything, I'm going to tell her what to do. you know
Exactly. They want to feel like that process is not handed to them. They're part of the process and the decision making. And that's a great one. And
yeah.
then also when you're asking them questions, that brings up how they're feeling.
Mhm.
That's really important to really kind of acknowledge their feeling.
Yeah.
That's
Do
the
you
core.
use a lot of visual tools to help address that? Like, what if we don't have that feeling vocabulary? Are you a feeling chart kind of gal?
Well, I do the feeling chart. We start off. If you try the deep breathing, that's not going to work with PDA kiddos. A lot of times they're like, no, I don't want to do deep.
Breathing doesn't work. Actually, it
It's
does,
just
but that's
finding out
okay.
what they enjoy,
Yeah.
what they enjoy and getting to know what they find relaxing for them.
Hmm.
Some of them like music, some like dancing. It just kind of getting to know the child and providing them with what makes them feel at ease and
Hmm.
regulated.
Hmm. Okay. Well, if listeners were to walk away remembering one thing about our PDA conversation, what would you want it to be?
Just continue really listening to the child and understanding their feelings and meeting them where they are. And remember, it's a collaborative process.
Collaborative process. As
Yes.
the LEP collaborative, I
Yes.
appreciate
I
that.
love that. That's my favorite word.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. Oh, before I do this, give me a shout out to the best way to find you if people have questions about PDA or want to connect with you, or um
Sure. I have my website, adaptabilityedpsychology.com, and then I'm also on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram. I'm not too active on Instagram. I'm on Facebook as well. And please keep an eye out for my flyer. I'll share that with you
yeah, absolutely. I'll put it
for
on
my
my
PDA training for upcoming in October. I don't have an exact date, but it's happening
That's
for
cool.
sure.
Who how are you, is it's going to be, CEUs are going to be offered?
I'm looking into that. So it's
Okay.
the first time I'm kind of looking into that area,
Yeah.
but
I
I'd like to do that for sure.
Yeah, it definitely increases people's
Yes, interest.
desire to go.
Yeah,
It's like,
absolutely.
oh yeah, that's a great training. Oh, but if I get CEUs, it's even better.
Absolutely.
Next level. Okay, very cool. Well, I will put all of your contact info on the notes for the show notes at the bottom of the screen for people who are listening in and checking out the podcast, so they can get in touch with you. But thank you so much for being here
Thank
and
you so much
sharing
for
your
having me.
information and helping us learn more about this very fascinating topic.
Thank you so much for having me. It was such a pleasure chatting with you.
Yeah, you as well. We'll do it again.
Okay.
All right. Take care.
You too. Bye.